It's time for the good outdoors in the all-new 106.7 The Buck. 100,000 watts of faith, freedom, and fun.
A little George Street in 1982, and it makes me want to take a back road.
Good morning. Welcome to the Good Outdoors radio show here every weekend. Same bat time, same bat channel. Today is boom time, baby. Opening day of muzzleloader season in the state of Georgia. If you're a youth, you're sitting up there with your rifle. Or you may be sitting up there with a muzzleloader, but you can take a rifle. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Going to give out some safe muzzleloading tips. Also, 7 ways to kill a deer on small property. How Facebook will get you in trouble as an outdoorsman. So it's going to be an interesting hour. Stick around. We'll be right back on the Good Outdoors Radio Network.
Some old back road.
Welcome back to the Good Outdoors radio show. Joined live in studio with David Nelson. He is the host of the morning show on WTIF 107.5 in Tifton, and he sits in sometimes. Glad to have him back. He's a little bit under the weather, so we're going to he's a champion, though, boy. He's a Georgia Bulldog. He's going to trudge through it. David, glad to have you this morning. How you doing?
Brother, I'm glad to be back. It's been a while. I've been listening to you on Saturday mornings, but thinking, man, I should be there.
That's what I was thinking.
But we've had some things going on around here, you might say.
Well, that's good. That can be a good and a bad thing. Hope it was good. You know, today is boom time, baby. Today is the opening day of the Georgia muzzleloader season. I'm fired up about it.
That's right. You can break out your old-timey flintlock rifle.
That's right.
One of them long ones, you know.
One of them long.
The long rifle.
It's got that little hesitation when you pull the trigger. You ever notice that on TV? You'll see them pull the trigger, and then it's like a whole second before the hammer falls and the gun goes off.
And even then it lights the powder, and then it goes off.
And then it goes off. So you got to hold on your target for like 5 seconds.
You know, last time I saw, what's that movie, man? There was a movie several years ago. It's slipping my mind now. It was a good one. It was set back in the 1700s, you know. It was before the American Revolutionary War.
Who was in it? Was it Mel Gibson, the Patriot?
No, it wasn't that one. It's before then. It was before then.
Huh.
It was like in upstate New York, Hudson River. You had the Iroquois, Last of the Mohicans. It came to me finally.
There you go.
That was a good one, man. That showed you like that flintlock rifle kind of thing. And them guys could be running down the trail and load that thing, and just like it was nothing.
That's right.
You know, but it would be a good way to teach you not to flinch.
Yep, you had to hold
because you had to pull that trigger.
Yeah.
And like you said, it took a second or two before
you didn't know when it was going to go off.
Before it went off, yeah.
Probably in some ways made you more accurate. The gun was terribly inaccurate, I understand, but things have come a long way. The modern muzzleloader now,
it ain't like that.
It can drive tacks at 200 yards if you want to spend the money. You got a scope. You know, it ain't been that long ago. You could hunt with a muzzleloader and you couldn't have a scope on it. Then they changed the rules, and now you go out there and there ain't a whole lot of difference.
It ain't a whole lot of primitive left, is it?
No, there's not. And I wonder about that sometimes.
Now, I always thought primitive weapon meant like a
stick and string,
like an alley-oop club or something, you know.
Like a slingshot. What do you call that? Atlatl? That thing they throw in? That is some primitive
a boomerang,
stuff,
maybe.
Boomerang, yeah. Boy, I tell you what. But anyway, the muzzleloader's in there. So, you know, I was talking to some of my friends over there at Safety Right Deer Processing here in Tifton. And, you know, they've been taking in a few deer and stuff like that. But I got to imagine the numbers across the state of Georgia are going to go up dramatically beginning today.
They're getting ready to hire some folks, I think. Yeah.
They're going to have to add some staff to keep up. But anyway, get on out there and enjoy, you know, your muzzleloader and the season. Take a kid. This is a great time to take a kid. And the reason it is, your kid, see, you can take your kid hunting today with them in the muzzleloader season, and you don't even have to have a muzzleloader. They can actually use a regular conventional high-powered rifle.
That's right, yeah.
So if you don't own a muzzleloader, but you do own a kid, here's your chance to get out there and get in the woods. And
or if you own a bow, you can still
bow hunt. That's right. And of course, you got to look at the rules and regulations. We were trying to quickly decipher them before we come on there, but check the rules and regulations on the either sex thing. I'm not quite sure.
Ain't so easy.
It ain't so easy. It's a little complicated with what we're looking at. I'm sure if you go to the Georgia website, it's a little easier. So we're gonna put that monkey on your back because I don't want you hauling a bunch of does up to the deer processor.
Don't blame Day.
Yeah, go back to Safety Right and say, hey, I got 4 does here I want you to process when you wasn't supposed to shoot them because you might get in trouble. Which I'm going to go ahead and, before we get to the safety
Now, how could you tell the difference between the type of bullet that you use in a muzzleloader, which typically ain't round like it used to be. Now it looks more like a regular conventional bullet, and one that was shot out of the rifle.
Just bigger. You know, I don't know. I think that's
not that I want to encourage anybody.
No, that's a very good question. I think in some circumstances it might be obvious, but then in others it may not be, depending on where you hit the deer. If you hit it in the shoulder blade, it's going to do it a lot of damage. You know, a 30-06 does a lot of damage. You know, a 50 cal does a lot of damage. I don't know how you would decipher that. But now,
well, I expect
the entry hole itself, if you could shoot him behind the shoulder and you see a hole that big, that's probably a muzzleloader. You know, I'm holding up something size of a quarter here in my hand, but it might be a little hard. So again, like David said, we're not encouraging that you go out and find out or test that theory.
I guess the analysis takes place when the game warden stops you in your truck.
There you go.
And inspects what type of rifle you carrying with you. That might be the opportunity where
that might be a giveaway for him to get in there and do some investigation on you.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, but anyway, go watch your kids shoot a deer. It's a great time to get them out in the woods, and that's what the whole show is about, getting kids involved in the outdoors. Here's your chance all week, starting today all the way to Friday. You can take your kid out there with a 243, a 7mm 08. Gives you a chance to spend time with your daughter or your son, and maybe they'll harvest a deer, and you'll create a memory that'll last a lifetime. But
do you actually own a muzzleloader?
I do own one. And I was thinking about that the other day. I own the muzzleloader for basically what normally would encompass 2 days out of the year, because I don't generally hunt the week because I have to work. So you got Saturday and Sunday that that I own a muzzleloader for.
That's right. It's only a week.
Yeah. So it's an investment that you got to think. But now you can use that. Here's the thing about it: the muzzleloader, like we discussed earlier, is a 200-yard weapon nowadays. The one I got is. You can use it all year long effectively. It's just as effective as any high-powered rifle as far as killing a deer, or maybe even arguably more so.
I just think it goes back to over time, how the regulations and what people wanted to do kind of developed. If you've got a bow, and I prefer bow hunting, I've never bought a muzzle loader because, like you say, it's only for a week.
Took me a long time.
You can still use your bow regardless.
Well, let me give the total disclosure of the reason I own a muzzle loader is because when we did the TV show, it was provided to us by CVA. So I actually can't sit here and say that I bought the muzzle loader. And I got to believe that I'd probably be in your boat if it wasn't for that. I come across it, and I probably wouldn't own one just for that 1 week thing. But I'll tell you this, I got friends that's all they do is muzzleloader.
People love it.
Yeah. They love that powder. When you shoot one, you know what I'm talking about. You just got that big cloud of smoke, and then a lot of times that when the smoke disappears, the deer's gone, and you go, man, I wonder if I hit him or not. And there's an element of excitement and drama there that they enjoy. And I can understand that, but I'm like you. I'd rather shoot a bow. There's no doubt about it. There's something about, the challenge of shooting a deer with a.
It's another excuse to buy one more gun. You tell your wife now. The primitive weapons.
Yeah.
It's a whole week in there, before you can start using firearms. And we need some meat.
That's right.
And so I need to buy this
just so we
can get out there and feed my family, and then I feel like I'm really doing my part as the man in his house.
Yeah. Ginger B told you to go to Publix.
That works for me.
Well, let me tell you, I'm gonna give you a tip. When Christmas gets here, if Ginger says, "Hey, go buy a new tree stand."
Now, Ginger's my wife, just to get everything straight.
Right. Ginger's your wife. Host of Tea Time here in Tifton, Georgia, so you'll catch that when it comes on. If she says, "David, I need you to go get a tree stand." Now, that's all you need to know. That's all you need to hear. Now, we know that she's talking about a Christmas tree stand. But if she tells you to get a tree stand, you run down there to the local tree stand store and get you a new ladder stand or a tower stand or whatever you want to get, and come back, and she's going to raise Cain at you. But she said to get a tree stand, and you followed her directions to the T.
Honey, I thought you meant that you wanted to start hunting with me. I got one big enough for both of us.
I was so excited I went out. It was the greatest day of my life. Best Christmas present ever. Now you tell me it's a Christmas tree stand. All right, well, I'll run down there and get one. You got your stand. Mission accomplished. So you make sure that's a tip. That's a tip for Christmas.
I'm thinking that might have happened to you sometime in the past. Is why you came up with it.
It happens quite often because she forgets about it and don't clarify, and I take advantage of it. It's all about listening. And women fuss about us for not listening.
Listen to what I mean, not what I say.
That's the hard part.
She says,
right?
yeah.
That's the hard part. Right? Talking about Facebook earlier. Facebook can get you in trouble in many aspects of life.
Oh, yes, it can.
Not to mention, socially and things with your wife or your girlfriend or you being in a place you ain't supposed to be. But as an outdoorsman, you got to be careful. I've seen
now, which one you talking about, your wife or your girlfriend?
I'm talking about my wife specifically. Radio gets you in trouble too, won't it? But
she ain't gonna be listening to this.
No, she ain't up yet. But anyway, Facebook. If you are one of those types that like to hunt, be careful what you put on Facebook. Make sure it's legit and legal. I seen 2 incidents firsthand locally where a guy got in trouble. One shot him a deer, took him a selfie of himself in the tree stand, saying, "Hey, I just shot a nice South Georgia deer down here with my bow and all that." And while he's talking, right there in the corner of his stand in the selfie is his rifle. He posted on there, and then somebody says, I think I heard a gunshot. Next thing you know, he's at the processor yanking the deer. So the Facebook killed him. The second one was a guy, very good friend of mine, gets up in his bow stand. He's got raccoons coming in and just nailing his corn pile. He decides to take one of them out for stealing his corn, which is a legitimate reason. But he puts it on Facebook and says, hey, the PSE is dialed in. Nailed this coon right where I aimed or whatever. Problem? It ain't raccoon season, as your regulations say right there when you did it. No. So I don't know if he got to visit yet, and we ain't going.
Well, that comes in Saturday.
That comes in
today.
That's right. They come in today. So watch what you're doing out there, and be careful what you're posting in the pictures. Not only can it get photobombed with somebody over there picking their nose or something like that, it can get you in a lot of trouble if you ain't on the up and up. So we're gonna have a lot of fun with that.
Definitely don't go hunting with Jimbo Fisher then.
No, sir. No, sir.
Because that man likes to pick his nose.
That's right. He will pick it. Hey, stay tuned. We got a lot coming up. We're going to talk about some muzzleloading safety tips in the next segment. You're listening right here on the Good Outdoor Radio Network.
Come on, somebody, why don't you run over attention and have a little fun? Get my lantern, get my gun.
Welcome back to the Good Outdoors Radio Show. Make sure, guys, you like us on Facebook. And while I'm talking about Facebook, if you have a tracking dog, a trail dog, that you want to get the word out that you don't mind coming and helping somebody find a wounded deer, which happens a lot.
Happens a lot, especially after dark.
Yeah. Well, these guys, several guys that offer the service, they'll charge you a small fee to come out there. And later on the show, I'm going to try to get to some etiquette there. If we don't do it this week, we'll talk next week about what you should expect from them and what they should expect from you. But, guys, if you have a trail dog, a tracking dog, shoot me a message on Facebook, The Good Outdoors, or an email at thegoodoutdoors@yahoo.com. Give me your name, your number, your information, where you're located, and I'll have that bank. And, guys, if you're out there hunting and lo and behold, you wound one and you need help, give me a shout on Facebook, and I will direct you to the nearest guy in your neck of the woods to help you find that wounded deer, because you owe it to the animal to exhaust all efforts. And there's some good ones, and I'll tell you this much: a dog trying to sniff out a deer works a lot better than a human trying to sniff out a deer. So
yeah, and most of the a lot of people like to hunt just to hunt, but I think the majority of people hunt, to put meat in the freezer.
No doubt.
And if you kill one after dark and you can't find it, then by the next morning you can't process that meat. It's no good.
Right. Down here, it's too warm.
You got a pretty short time window, like Steve said, especially in this area of the country, to get it processed and get it on ice. Otherwise, it's a waste. And we'd hate that.
That's right. As we go forward, we'll tell you the reasons why it's important to get that deer on out of the woods and to the processor as fast as possible. It makes better table fare. We'll give you the stats and the reasons, the temperature it needs to be kept at, and things like that in coming shows. But again, send me that tracking dog information. Going to get back to some muzzleloader tips. Today is the opening day of muzzleloader. Hopefully you've taken my advice in a couple of shows gone by where we told you to go out there where you're going to be hunting. Make sure there's no wasp nest in there. Make sure there's no loose boards. Make sure everything is safe, good. This morning you should be sitting up in that tree. I'm sure you got your earbud in listening to the show like many of you do, and we do appreciate that. Want to know how successful you were today. But you should be wearing your safety harness. That's number one. if you have a child with you, you should be wearing your safety harness. Now, if you're in a tower stand, a 2-man tower stand, you're smart enough to know should you use a safety harness sitting in an enclosed platform. That's up to you. But make sure safety is the first thing on your mind. Make sure you know what you're shooting at. Make sure the kid you got with you is well versed in the rifle he's using. And if you're sitting up there with a black powder gun, there's some safety tips I want to go over with black powder. And David, you not owning a muzzle loader, you'll probably find this interesting. A muzzle loader is a fickle thing. Now, there's been advancements, and some of these, these tips I give you, you're going to say, well, that don't even apply to me. I used a different gun. And so take what I tell you and apply it to you as you, as your style of hunting dictates. But black powder can't get wet. That's obvious. These are some tips that you've got to follow in order to have a successful hunt, because there's times if you don't do the right thing, that big buck steps out there, that fat juicy doe steps out there, and you pull the trigger, it don't shoot because you didn't follow some of these tips. Use only black powder or a black powder substitute in muzzleloading firearms. Select the right powder for your muzzleloading firearm. Store black powder and black powder substitutes away from heat, sparks, and static electricity. That ought to be obvious. You don't want to ignite that powder, and it will ignite. It will catch on fire, so be careful. Store percussion caps and powder separately and in cool, dry places. Use a marked ramrod to see if a muzzle loader is loaded. Never, ever, ever look down the barrel of that muzzle loader. Now, let me explain something to you guys that are new. I'm wanting to get you interested in muzzle loading, but there's some vast differences. When you load that muzzle loader, what you do is you pour powder in the barrel of the gun. You take the rod that is connected to the thing and you pack that powder down, and then you take the bullet and you put the bullet in the end of the gun. And you take the ramrod and you stick that bullet. You pack it down into that powder. You go hunting, and you don't see anything, which happens. It's called hunting, not killing. You might not see anything. A lot of times, matter of fact, I can say that I go more and not see something than I do go and see something. That's just the way it works. Now,
most of the time, that's the way it works.
You can't unload the muzzleloader like you do your bolt action 243 or 7mm 08. You have to fire the weapon to unload it. Okay? Now, some people with advanced technology and all, they feel like once they load it, they can go through 3 or 4 hunts or whatever, and without unloading the gun, firing it. A lot of times, especially the first few years of muzzleloading, you'd have to fire the gun and clean it because it's that powder and everything's so corrosive. You got to keep that thing clean as a whistle. So, but nowadays, a lot of people, they get lazy and they say, man, I ain't gonna shoot it because then they're gonna have to clean it. They're gonna have to reload it. So they just they lay it in the seat of their truck, and lo and behold, sometimes you forget, well, man, did I unload that thing or not? Well, you can take the cap off, in the breech, but the bullet and the powder is in the barrel. And you say, I don't know if I unloaded it or not. You probably did take the cap off for safety reasons. The question is it loaded or not? So how do you know? Well, it ain't but 2 ways to know.
Well, you tilt that thing down and see if the bullet will run out.
It ain't going to run out because it's packed in there tight. If it runs out, then you know it was loaded, though. We'll give you that. You can take the rod and you can slip it down in the barrel, and most people will make a little mark on their rod so they'll know if they've seated the bullet.
That's
so
right.
if you look and see, if it goes all the way down in there, it's unloaded and you're safe. You can reload it. Or you can fire it. You can put a cap on it, go outside and fire the gun. But the point is, never, ever, ever take for granted that the thing's unloaded. Don't look down the barrel. Make sure that you follow the proper steps to determine whether it's loaded or unloaded. Never pour black powder or black powder substitute directly into a muzzle loader from a flask or powder horn or can. Always use a powder measure. This is extremely, extremely important for 2 reasons. You may get too much powder in there, or you might not get enough. Both are bad. If you put too much in there, you might blow the end of that sucker off. If you don't put enough and that deer steps out, it might look like a cartoon with Yosemite Sam shooting his pistol and the bullet rolling out the end of the barrel. I have had that happen to me.
Makes it halfway there and falls.
That's right. You can see it. Me and Trey filmed a hog hunt down at Ross Hammock Ranch one time with, matter of fact, it was Cole Taylor. And Cole Taylor's written 2 #1 songs, one for Luke Bryan and one for Florida Georgia Line. He's done well. We wish him luck. But something happened. Either he didn't get enough powder in the muzzle loader, some of it got wet. So there was a malfunction. And on the video, we're standing over his shoulder, and he shoots, and you literally could see the bullet come out of the barrel and hit the sand in front of the hog. But he was shooting. It was very comical. Had a lot of fun with that. So always use a powder measure and always know exactly how much you've gotten in there. Be sure to seat the ball, the bullet, or the wad and shot directly on top of the powder charge. A gap between the projectile and the powder charge could damage the firearm and injure the shooter and bystanders. Now, what that means is when you pour that powder down in there, and pack it, it goes down there pretty easy. That bullet is tight, and it is hard to push down in there, and you got to make sure that you stick it all the way down in there and seat it good and tight next to that powder. That powder explodes, and if there's a gap in between it, it don't function like it's supposed to. It could do a lot of damage. Have a qualified gunsmith inspect older antique muzzle loaders, like David was talking about earlier. They can break and have some problems. This last tip that I'm gonna read, I'm gonna total disclosure. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know what the heck it means, but I'm gonna read it because you guys out there are smarter about muzzleloaders than me. You might know what it means. Do not fire Damascus barreled shotguns unless they have been inspected. If they are safe to use, load them only with black powder or a black powder substitute.
Damascus steel.
Is that what it is?
That's what the barrel is made out of. Yeah, it's
Okay.
it's a special kind of steel that's like been folded.
Huh.
You've seen a knife that's got this real cool looking steel.
Yeah.
It's got like
Yeah.
ripples and all in it. That's
Yeah.
typically Damascus steel.
Okay. Does it come from Syria? Because that's where
Um,
I'm teasing. I don't know.
Well, I don't know.
I learned something
No,
there.
it's a process of how they make the steel. It's
Okay.
very beautiful to look at, but I know there are some black barrel rifles that claim to have Damascus steel in the barrel.
I got you. Okay, makes sense. Well, I'm going to say this like I say all the time. I am a radio show host, but that is not to be confused with a professional radio show host.
Well,
That is not what I am.
I just happen to know what Damascus means because my father was a prolific collector of knives.
Well, also,
And he loved the Damascus steel blade.
you're also 10 years older than I am, and you just got more knowledge under your brain.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm teasing. We're the same exact age. 39, baby. 39. Again, get your kids involved, in the muzzleloading thing, and you'll be glad you did. It's a great time, great chance, great opportunity to go out in the woods early. You don't have to go buy a muzzleloader to do this. So if you're a hunter and you want something new, hey, you can break that season in now. So go ahead, plan a trip, get your butt up, go out there this afternoon, and if you're sleeping in and listening and wondering what you could do, hey, you got something to do now. Go out there and get your deer stand with your son or your daughter, make some memories. Get out there and make sure that some of the fondest times I had was sighting in my rifle in anticipation of the opening day of deer season with my dad. I'll never forget how much fun it was just getting out there and shooting that gun and that anticipation. A lot of times it was far greater than the actual hunt itself. So take a kid with you this weekend. And next segment, we're going to get back and talk about 7 ways to kill a big deer on your small property right back on the Good Outdoor Radio Network.
The Redneck Yacht Club. Redneck Yacht Club.
Go ahead and crank this on up.
Welcome back to the Good Outdoors Radio Show. David, in mine and your life, we've noticed a trend. As population has exploded, the opportunities even around here where we live in a pretty rural area. Years ago, you had the opportunity to lease 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 acres of deer land. Well, because of urban sprawl and construction and expansion, seems to me like the places you get to hunt are getting smaller and smaller. It's harder to find a 1,000-acre lease. You're looking at probably 200 to 300, 400 acre leases and things like that. So it's changed the way that we approach hunting.
I think that's true.
Yeah,
I think that's true. Yeah.
Up in Atlanta,
But these days it's so easy to with the internet and everything to get the word out. Say I've got a farm that I want to lease
That's
out.
right.
There's so many people that will be competing for it.
exactly.
Back in the old days, if you had a 1,000-acre lease, you leased it to your neighbor or somebody down the road that didn't farm or didn't own land. It was always somebody that you knew here locally. Now They may come from Florida or New York State or wherever.
Mm-hmm. Well, up in Fulton County, Atlanta, that's obviously there's houses everywhere, and you see if you look at the internet, you'll see things where guys are shooting big bucks with their bows because that's an archery-only county, in small woodlots. I'm talking about 3-4 acre, 20 acre places that they're hunting, and they go around and get permission to hunt these places from the landowners, and the construction company may have just bought this patch of woods and they're going to tear it up and put a subdivision there, but you may get 1 year out of it. So what I have found here is some tips on how to maximize your opportunity to harvest and see more big bucks on small properties. It's off the Realtree.com website under the hunting section, and Bill Conway and Tracy Breen teamed up to bring some photos and some comments about it. But around here in farmland, we're getting a lot of farmland transformed into bigger and bigger fields. The yield, more peanuts are better to farmers, more cotton, more produce. So they're knocking down more woods and creating more cropland. So even though we're not dealing with quite the urban sprawl that maybe the big city is, we're still losing woods in some cases due to farming operations. So, 20 years ago, it wasn't common for hunters to have hundreds of acres to hunt, like we said, just by knocking on the door and asking. Well, it's changed now. The supply and the demand and the cost. You may have X amount of dollars. You might not can lease but 50 acres of land, or maybe you just bought a small piece of property and you're trying to figure out, I got a few deer, but I don't have any big deer. What can I do? Well, keeping deer on small parcels of land requires food and shelter and low pressure. Okay, if you can make it to where they feel comfortable, they're going to come to you and they're going to stay there. You may not have them there now, but you can get them there. You can at least have a chance. If you've got any deer at all, you can make it better. And that's what it's all about. Maximizing what you've got, creating a good food source, creating a good bedding area, a sanctuary area to where they can't, go in. I've seen people, matter of fact, I know a guy that's got 5 acres down just south of the Georgia line into Florida, and he kills deer, every year, just coming out of the woodwork. It's because that 5 acres is situated in a particular travel corridor to where you can depend on the deer coming through there. He's got food out there. He don't go in there all the time. He just kind of assumes. He's got to the point he kind of assumes that, I want to kill a deer today. So he goes down there, and that's what he does. But he don't go down there repeatedly, and he don't go down there. He gets off of work at 3:30. He don't hunt it every day. He hunts it when the wind's right. He keeps the pressure off of it, keeps the activity out of it. They feel safe.
I'd say that's probably the key aspect of that is low pressure, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the number one because, this past week I had friends bow hunting. I hadn't been able to bow hunt much this year. I had them bow hunting, and they've told me they all have a common theme. They're seeing less and less and less deer as it gets closer to the opening day of gun season. Why do you think that is? I got a theory. I bet your theory would be in line with mine.
Well, there's a lot more people in the woods.
That's right. There's more activity. People going out and checking them deer stands, getting them food blocks ready, putting out corn, getting ready for rifle season. Deer know that. They ain't stupid.
Oh yeah.
So they know
and that's
that.
what everybody does. I fall victim to that also. That you get busy, you're working during the summer, you don't have much time to do the scouting that you need to do. Plus, it's so hot during the summer.
That's right.
That as it gets closer to hunting season, then you wake up on Saturday morning, you think, man, I need to be out there checking my stands.
That's right.
And everybody's doing the same thing. And of course, the more you go out there to your stand, the less you're gonna see deer.
That's exactly right. You're leaving human scent out there. They hear you, and things like that. They associate things. I remember. Years ago, I was in a hunting club in Camden County over there on the coast of Georgia when I lived in St. Simons Island. And the wild hogs got so conditioned because I got tired of shooting wild hogs. Last week's show, if you remember, we talked about the nuisance that a hog can be. I got sick of them, so I just quit shooting them because I felt bad about shooting them and leaving them laying there. I just quit shooting them. So I got to where I was immune to their presence. I'd see them, and it would be like seeing a mockingbird fly across the road. It was just it meant nothing. I would go fill up my feeder, and they would hear that corn hit that feeder, And I could walk 15 yards away from the feeder and stand there for about 1 minute, and hogs would come to the feeder. They were laying out in the bushes, and they heard me. And they associated the fact that I wasn't going to hurt them. And they'd come out there, they'd look at me, and, the wind could be blowing their way. They wouldn't care. They were totally comfortable. And that's the point, same point with deer. If you will make them comfortable, they'll stay on your property. And the biggest thing is, number one, in our opinion, in our non-professional radio host hunting opinion, don't bother them. That's the biggest thing. Don't go in and out there constantly. I've got a trail camera out. I know you do too. We want to go there every day. When I first got it, I'll never forget. I put it out, and about 10 minutes later, I was thinking, I wonder if one's come by there yet. I'm going to give it another hour, and I'm going to check it. That's foolish.
Yeah.
See, now we leave it out for weeks at a time.
Yeah,
we leave it out the weeks at a time. Or now they got cameras out there that'll send a text to your phone. If one's there, that's the ultimate thing. You don't never have to go in there until it's ready to hunt.
With a photo.
With a photo, that's right.
Yeah, that's the ultimate right there.
That is the ultimate.
Being able, because you have to stay away. I mean, if you haven't been at this point in the season and you're getting ready to go gun hunting next week and you haven't been out there already, like you should have been back in June, early July.
You behind.
Then you might as well wait till opening day and just go.
That's right.
There's no need to go now because all you're going to do is scare all the deer off.
That's right. No difference. That's exactly right. Second in line of importance, in my opinion, is bedding areas. If you own a piece of land, I've got 7 humble acres. There's deer on it. If I didn't have some sort of thick area to where the deer felt like they could go out there and do their thing undetected, I wouldn't have them except passing through. That's the best I could hope for. But I got enough sense to know that I can't open up that whole area back there to where I could see all 7 acres. I got to keep it some thick out there to where they'll come through there and they'll hang out there. Okay, so bedding areas. If you've got a place, create a nice bedding area that's on small pieces of property. They don't have to be that big, but a deer's going to spend, I'm guessing here, probably 75-80% of his time in his life in his bedding area for protection. They're not just going to, they're not like us on a Friday night. We go hang out at the mall or the movie theater. They stay in the woods. You know what I mean? They're going to stay covered up. They want to feel protected because they got predators, not just humans. They got coyotes, bobcats, whatever, natural predation. So they want to have a safe place. So make sure you create bedding areas and safe areas, safe sanctuaries for them deer to get in there and feel safe. So another tip on the small place is be aware of what's missing. Don't get hung up on and fret about the size of the property you got to hunt. Look at it. I don't care if it's 5 to 50 or 100 acres. Look at it, and don't look and see what it has. What is it missing? Is it missing the bedding area? Is it missing cover? Is it missing food? Is it just pine trees void of any kind of good browse or acorns falling or any kind of food plots or anything? What's it missing that you can enhance? Is it dry? Is there no water whatsoever out there? You can put water in there. That you can Google it. Deer water tanks, popular in Texas because it's so dry. But you can create places. Is there a high protein food source missing? Supplemental feeding in a deer feeder. Look at what is missing. Don't look at what you got. Wonder why they're there. Look at what you don't have, and plant that. You can plant honeysuckle vines, grapevines, persimmon trees, but pear trees.
And you don't need much room for a small food plot.
That's
you
exactly
can do that
right.
anywhere.
That's exactly right. Food plots. You can have one, what I call a hunting plot. That you plant so you can sit in your deer stand and shoot a deer out of. And then there's also year-round plots that you plant to keep that forage out there, to keep them from coming in and out and leaving. So know what's missing and do something to create it. Another tip on the thing they give is to shoot does. Now, whether or not you need to shoot does is going to be something that you've got to determine yourself on your land. If all you're seeing is does, then you're going to have to shoot some of the does in order to see the bucks. But I can tell you this, if you've got a good population of does, you're probably going to have some bucks coming out there. So balancing your herd is going to be an issue too, even on a small plot. So hope some of these tips have helped out this morning on the small plots. We're going to take a little bit of break. Going to come back with a 5-minute wrap up. Appreciate you tuning in. We'll be right back here on the Good Outdoor Radio Network.
Y'all better crank this up. And interstate, there's a station playing cash Hank Willie way. And foreign cars and four-wheel drive.
Welcome back to the wrap-up segment of the Good Outdoors, brought to you by the Hayhire Huddle House. They've got 10 meals for $4.99. That includes your drinks. So make sure you go by my buddies at the Hayhire Huddle House and check them out. Also, this is a great time of the year.
Now, I've had many people ask me this question. What's the difference between the Huddle House and the Waffle House?
The Huddle House is better, obviously.
Huddle House has pancakes.
Yeah, the Huddle House does have pancakes. That's right. One of them you couldn't get French fries. Was it the Huddle House? The Waffle House you used to couldn't get the French fries.
You used to couldn't get French fries. I don't know if you can or not.
Yeah,
I don't ever remember ordering French fries at the Waffle House.
I may be wrong. I don't pay no attention to the Waffle House, obviously, because the Huddle House.
The Huddle House has got a lot bigger menu than the Waffle House.
They got it going on, especially at the Huddle House. We're going to be doing hopefully once a month dinner there. Starting next month on Tickle Night, we'll give you more information on that as we go by. Dove season came back in last weekend.
I know.
Have you gotten on any dove shoots this year?
I haven't, and I want to put a call out. I mean, somebody call me and say, hey, we're having a dove shoot.
That's right. David Nelson, WTF, the morning show.
I'd rather do that than just about anything. I mean, that's old-time hunting right there now.
A lot of fun. It's back in. It's in as we speak right now, and that is a fantastic place to take a kid.
There's just not as many dove huntings as there used to be.
I don't think so neither. I don't know why that is. Hadn't really thought much about it, but I gotta agree with that, man. When I was growing up in my 20s,
all them game wardens just made it hard to hunt.
They can't take a joke.
They can't, they can't understand that all that corn and peanuts out there in the field just fell out there.
Yeah.
They can't understand how all them dead birds got in your bag.
Mm-hmm.
You just couldn't win.
I heard somebody tell me this week. I ain't gonna call no names. But they told me that if we got in there, and we're not promoting illegal activity, not doing that. I'm just wondering if this is true or not, because a lot of people, let's face it, will shoot over the limit of doves. My question is this: if you take a brown paper bag and you put 15 doves in it, and you just make somebody's name up, and you write on the outside of that bag George Smith. And you take those, allegedly, hypothetically, if you take those 15 birds, put them in the back of your truck, and you go back out there and you shoot some more, and the game warden comes up, and he meets you at your truck, and you got 12 or 15 in your vest, and then there's 15 that George Smith gave you in the brown paper bag. Can you get away with that?
Well, I think you get away with it better if you put probably Bubba Smith on there instead of George.
Well, Bubba's more of a South Georgia name. I gotcha.
Because the game warden probably knows some Bubba Smiths.
Yeah, he probably does. There's too many of them to interrogate there. But no, I'm kidding. 15's plenty. You can shoot 15 on Saturday, 15 on Sunday. That's 30. That'll feed your family right there, I would imagine. So,
well, you get excited and you lose track of how many you have shot. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got 2 or 3 laying over there by that guy you hadn't picked up yet.
Exactly.
And you just lose track of it.
Well, or the one where you shoot one, you hit it, and yet he picks it up and claims it.
Well, that's right. There's some dispute as to who owns that one.
That's exactly
Who's responsible for that
So
one,
you really need to shoot about 18 is what you're saying, just to cover.
What you need to do is not take too many shells to the field. Otherwise,
yeah that's true. You get in trouble
if
there.
they coming in, you going to shoot them.
Yeah, that's right.
I ain't never seen,
it's never a lot of fun.
Anybody at a dove shoot sitting on that bucket going, well, I got my limit, y'all, so I'm just going to sit here and watch these birds fly over my head.
You know what the best dove retrieving bird dog I ever seen in my life was?
Tell me.
My 6-year-old son. He will watch them birds hit the ground. He's 9 now, but he'll watch the bird hit the ground and run there and get it and come back. I ain't got to do nothing. I can sit right on my bucket and drinking a Diet Coke and
you've trained him well then.
That joker trained. He was easy to train and loves it. Gosh, the point is, take a kid with you. They'll have a lot of fun on the dove field. Chances are there'll be other kids out there too. The fun and fellowship. Sometimes there's some barbecue and baked beans involved and things like that. Just an absolute blast on the dove field. So get out there and shoot some doves. Send me some pictures at the Good Outdoors Facebook page. I had some fish sent to me the other day. I'm going to get them put up, and I always like to send you a T-shirt if you'll send me your photos. I want to see some deer. Today is the day. Boomstick out, baby. The fur's going to fly. The meat's going to hit the ground. If it's brown, it's down. Well, maybe not that. You got to look at your local regulations. So
Primitive weapons.
primitive weapons. You can
I
still
see
shoot a
somebody
bow
that killed one with a slingshot
or a flintlock.
or jumped out of a tree with the knife in his teeth like Tarzan.
Just
That's
so-
primitive weapon.
Hey, appreciate the journey here, the Good Outdoor Radio Network. See you next weekend.
Ooh, you and me go fishing in the dark.